Mysterious developments are taking place in the war between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is testing a new method of attack against Russia. This method of attack has critical differences from conventional war strategies. We will take an in-depth look at the new strategy that was baffled Russian soldiers. First, let's look at the data we have. Looking at the maps again will help refresh our memory. Russia had managed to occupy only 4 regions in this operation, launched from eastern Ukraine. However, the Ukrainian army liberated more than half of the territories occupied by Russia. In the process, the Ukrainian army liberated Kherson, the largest regional capital occupied by Russia. The Russian army suffered huge losses. Ukrainian soldiers managed to push the Russian army to the east bank of the Dnipro River. In this way, Russia has been squeezed further. In recent days, the fighting between Russia and Ukraine has been taking place around the town of Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. Russia is suffering heavy losses in this area. We can talk about the real developments now, but these details may upset Russian supporters. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry has published a report on Russia's losses in the last 24 hours. In just one day, Russia suffered heavy losses, including 510 soldiers, 5 tanks and 5 armored fighting vehicles. These huge losses in the Russian army are making the Kremlin's job harder. Here is a list of Russia's total losses so far in this war. 92,200 soldiers, 5,905 armored vehicles, 2,929 tanks, 1,915 artillery systems, 1,587 unmanned aerial vehicles, 281 airplanes, 264 helicopters, 16 vessels. The Kremlin may think that it cannot win the war after the heavy losses, but they plan to destabilize Ukraine by prolonging the war. This plan is costing the Russian military a lot of money. Russia is no longer suffering its only defeat on the battlefield. The Ukrainian army is now operating against Russia to stop the Russian invasion. There are very striking allegations about this. 2 military bases in Russia experienced successive explosions last night. Explosions occurred at Engels Military Airport in Saratov region and Diaghilevo Military Airport in Ryazan city. While the cause of the explosions is not yet known, Russian and Ukrainian media claim that the explosions in both regions, hundreds of kilometers away from the Ukrainian border, were the result of a drone strike. It is reported that 2 Tu-95 type bombers of the Russian Air Force were damaged in the explosion at Engels Military Airport. Damage to these very expensive airplanes caused a heavy damage to Russia. All of Russia's military aircraft have been withdrawn to hangars. It was stated that a fuel tanker exploded at Diaghilevo Military Airport, killing 3 people and injuring 6 others. The Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations reported that 2 of the wounded were in serious condition, while an investigation was launched into the incident. The other day, an explosion occurred in an apartment building in Russia. While a 5-story building experienced a partial collapse after the explosion, according to the first determinations, 4 people lost their lives and 10 people were injured. It is claimed that this building was allocated to KGB agents, Russia's intelligence service, and that these agents were planning an attack on Ukraine. The identities of those who died as a result of the collapse of this building were concealed, because Russia wanted to hide the deaths of its intelligence personnel. There is a strong belief that all these attacks were carried out by Ukraine, but no one has any concrete evidence or details of what happened because Russia has blocked reporting on these attacks. So why is the Russian government blocking reporting on these events? In fact, there is a very clear answer to this question. Putin made the biggest mistake of his career by invading Ukraine. The whole world saw how badly the Russian army failed in this war, and the reaction against Putin increased. Putin has lost face. Everyone now knows that Russia is very weak militarily and administratively. This worries Putin. Putin claims that Russia is a strong state and he is constantly propagandizing for this. If it is admitted that Ukraine is operating from military bases in Russia, it will become clear that Russia's air defense system is very weak. Russia refrains from commenting on this issue. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was asked about this. I also read the news in the media. Russian President Vladimir Putin was informed about the events, Peskov said. Peskov, who always makes very bold and aggressive statements, this time hesitated to make a statement. This shows that things are getting worse in the Kremlin. According to experts, Ukraine will now step up its operations in Russia. The Ukrainian army plans to disrupt all Russian offensive plans. Many military bases in Russia can be hit by Ukrainian drones. This forces the Russian army to abandon its offensive position, because Russia now has to play defense. These attacks are also increasing the backlash against Putin. Unable to protect his country, Putin's reputation is diminishing more and more. The number of people taking part in anti-Putin protests in Russia is increasing every day. Putin is having great difficulty in maintaining his power. Thanks to these operations, the Ukrainian army is also ending Putin's political career. This increases the political uncertainty in Russia. Russia is intensely debating who should succeed Putin. The power struggles in Russia are escalating. Tension in Russia is quite high due to these struggles. Some bureaucrats and commanders have started to cooperate with some politicians in order to be appointed to critical positions. As a result, the chaos in the Russian state is growing. Ukraine's strategy has succeeded in stirring up Russia. Ukrainian leader Zelensky is succeeding in wearing Russia down with the strategic decisions he has taken in this war. Having defeated the Russian army at the front, Zelensky has now succeeded in creating chaos in Russian politics. In this way, he continues to inflict the heaviest defeat on Putin. Zelensky is putting Putin in a worse situation every day with his unprecedented war strategies. Putin, one of the most experienced politicians in the world and a spy for years, is helpless in the face of Zelensky's moves. Zelensky, a former comedian, plays his most painful jokes on Putin. Narcissistic Putin, who has struggled for years to gain respect, is disgraced all over the world. It is clear that Putin's political career is coming to an end. As the success of the Ukrainian army grows, so does Putin's end. Putin, who has ruled Russia since 1999, has reached the end of the road. Putin has managed to overcome many political crises so far, but the operations of the Ukrainian army have done Putin the most damage. It is thought that the Ukrainian army will now target more symbolic locations in its operations in Russia. There may be explosions at the biggest bases of the Russian army. All security measures in the Russian army have been put on high alert. All Russian soldiers are in great fear, because it is thought that Ukraine could launch an operation at any moment. It is claimed that the Ukrainian army will use drones for this operation. The drones managed to overcome the Russian defense system. The Russian army does not have the power to counter Ukraine's drones. This situation is causing more panic in Russia. The situation in Russia could change completely if the Ukrainian army launches attacks on military bases in Russia. These attacks could infuriate the Russian rebels. The Russian rebels who are angry could storm the Kremlin in the face of such an event. These possibilities are keeping Putin awake. Putin is afraid of both his people and the Ukrainian army. What do you think about Ukraine's war strategies? How do you think Zelensky's policies are affecting this war? Do you think the explosions in Russia were caused by Ukraine?